You know, Virginia, telling those that you touch to grow. And Sharon, I feel like you are a flowing river that is constantly moving, one with, going over the rocks, but continuing moving, always with a vision and a place of moving to something more, a beautiful vision of the future.
Virginia, I see you as a torchbearer who's running, and passing that torch on to as many people that you can, and supporting their growth as well. Sharon, your gentle spirit, there's just a spirit that emanates from you that just helps people open up and share, and you could just feel the genuine concern.
Sharon, when I think of you, I think of a feather, and if somebody comes up behind you with a feather, it's such a small and light object, and it's a very gentle.
More, a beautiful vision of the future.
Feather. And Virginia, for me, you're a river, and in that way, you constantly flow. You change with the environment as you need to, while slowly eroding what doesn't need to be there to enhance everything that is beautiful and should be seen more than it is.
And don't you think you're supposed to remind us to breathe?
That was
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
And at the top of it is that eagle, that it's kind of, if you get to the top of the mountain, there's something there that is just really magical. But sometimes we don't feel like climbing that mountain, but if we do, there's something there that's going to be very powerful.
Thank you.
And for Sharon, my Sharon, that I always say to everybody, oh, you know my Sharon? Or you have my Sharon in your phone? For me, and this is not going to sound beautiful to anybody else, but you're like that, you've had the day, and you're just like that hot cup of tea you need at the very end of a very hard day. And you're just that beautiful thing that you need when you can't take one more minute, that helps you to keep going for that very next day.
I think
both of you have never felt like an outsider in this community. It's never felt like you're coming in to just tell us to do something a certain way. I truly consider both of you as part of this community. And I think that's because it's very, I'm aware that people care a lot about what happens here. And so that's pretty huge. I don't say that about a lot of people that don't live in Battle Creek and just come in. So I just want to acknowledge that you are one of us.
Keeping with the metaphor, I was thinking that you guys are like the fertilizer, and then I thought about the negative connotations. That's that one. You're allowing what needs to grow, and it's not for your benefit, right? I mean, you're doing it because it's the right thing for our garden here, and so I'm really grateful for everything that you're able to do.
I don't have a metaphor either. Well, I can do. Last night when I was writing down what I was planning to say today, I got thinking about, I'm going to cry, I got thinking about my life and what coaching has really done to my life, not more than my work, my whole life. And thinking back, my parents used coaching with me a lot. They never prescribed what I was supposed to do. They just supported me in whatever crazy choices I made and then lifted me up. And so it's not a nature thing, but what you two have done for me is like what my mom and dad have done for me. And that has just made me feel like I can make the choice and I can do this. Thank you.
So I feel like, Virginia, I hate to use this, I'm going to continue this. You are like to me the sun. And so with your bright light, radiating, penetrating, enlightening us,
I mean, I don't have a speech
Whatever you
today.
want.
I don't have a speech. That's the real problem.
It's not a problem.
All right, we are live. Whenever you guys are ready, just
Do you need
go ahead and queue
us
up
to
the
introduce
questions.
ourselves or anything? Or is
Yeah,
that?
please do.
So I'm Kathy Grosso. I'm I work for Battle Creek Public Schools in this community. And I would say that of all the people in our coaching community group, I would have been voted the most unlikely to succeed and came to coaching, kicking and screaming. And even after the first part of the training, was a little bit skeptical about the possibilities. So, however, in watching coaching and participating and experiencing coaching, I'm a planner. I'm a tell you how to do it. This is the way it's going to happen. I'm a strategic, flow chart person. So to watch coaching happen without that kind of control and people coming to their own solutions or ideas or possibilities blew me away.
I'm Kathleen Moore, and I work for the Intermediate School District and also am a member of the Lakeview School Board. And coaching for me, I think has transformed me from being a defensive listener into a person who can listen to the possibilities and not take it personally, and help a person come up with those solutions through a series of powerful questions and curiosity and acknowledgement and not fighting back. That's been particularly helpful when I hear things as a school board member that are pretty uncomfortable. And I find myself wishing I would have had this for the last 10 years, because I think I would have been a much more effective leader and listener if I could have listened without being attached to the answers and just listening more for the possibilities. So that's how it's transformed some of what I do. It's been exciting to watch how it can transform the families that I worked with as a family coach, as they discover the possibilities in their own lives that they didn't necessarily understand before they answered some of their own questions.
I often think in schools, I'm in a particular elementary school right now with parents, families that have a lot of challenges, and I often think, what if we approached education from a coaching mindset? How would that change the power that parents feel, the engagement of families in schools? It would be a much different climate and culture in our schools if coaching was the premise. And that's what I've tried to do more and more throughout the last couple of years, is approaching parents and families and students and teachers and administrators with what are the possibilities versus what are the deficits.
I echo what Kathy is saying. I think, too, our teachers are in a very difficult position where they're being evaluated based almost exclusively on the performance of their kids, on standardized tests particularly. And so there's a tremendous amount of pressure that it wasn't there a while ago for them. And I think that has caused us an environment where it's easy for them to lose focus of the relationship that they create. And I think coaching has that possibility to really help teachers remember why they're in the classroom, and help them refocus on what it means to be an excellent teacher. And so I'm excited about that. And I think that a lot of that can be done with coaching in the background. It isn't something that has to be really upfront and feel very scripted. When we coach with it just in the background, it's always present, and for me it puts me in a very different position when I'm talking to people. And it is that position of curiosity, and I think that that really makes a big difference.
Education coordinator for community action, education and children's services, early Head Start and Head Start. And I came to this program after a day or two training, and I was the only one of my colleagues that chose to take advantage of this opportunity. But I'm so glad that I did. There has been challenges for me along the way, but I think I'd like to talk about transformation and how this has transformed myself and some of the people that I've had the opportunity to coach. I've learned so many skills and become a much more effective listener, and through that opportunity, learning to think concisely and ask powerful questions about how when I have been coached, how I offer information to get down to the nitty-gritty so that we can really look at the possibilities to answer, solve the problems or anything that I have been part of. The other thing is that I appreciate more than I can ever say the opportunity to be coached by the professionals that are training us, and seeing how their skills and using some of their skills and strategies has helped me to coach the people that I coach through work. I've watched transformations happen in several instances where teachers have had the opportunity to really reflect upon their practice through powerful questions and come out on the other end with ideas and opportunities to use strategies that they might not have ever imagined to change the lives of the children and families that they serve.
All right. Virginia,
Okay.
why are we here?
So-
What brought you here to Battle Creek?
So I'm Virginia Kellogg, and I am co-owner of Leadership That Works. And we have been in this community for a few years doing coach training and coach approach in the nonprofit sector. So we started out by working with the Early Childhood Connections Project, training their family coaches who work directly with families. And from that, we have spread out much deeper into the community. And a couple of things about what we're trying to accomplish here. One thing is that we come into the community as coaches. So we have an expertise to offer, and we don't come in saying, this is how your community should use it. We come in and say, let's give you these coaching skills, and then let's bring you together in a room, 50 or 100 of you, and let you decide what's useful about that for your community. That's a really different approach than the consultant approach, which comes in and says, here's the skills we have to offer, but here's how you ought to use them. And what I think is really important about that is that's exactly the skills that we want our coaches in the community to have with the families and leaders that they work with. We want them to engage with those families and leaders and say, here's a way that I can work with you. How would it be useful for you to use this information and knowledge and skills that I bring? All of the coaches that we train in this community do a hybrid approach. So the hybrid approach is part coaching, part skills that they already have, resources that they already use. So in that way, coaching starts to run in the background for them. They may never say to somebody, I'm coaching you, but what they will do is use the coach approach in all the other work that they do. So what's the advantage of that? What we see the advantage of coaching is that it turns people into doers instead of receivers in a community. It builds personal responsibility. It has people be the experts in their lives, have parents be the experts in their children's lives, and it allows people to step more fully into what they want, not just what people think they should do. So when we train coaches, our main goal is to have them interact with people, not interact with problems. And that's a really different mindset. I think that part of what this coach approach in community does is it shifts the mindset of service workers, of actually anybody, parents, from a mindset of I'm supposed to have the answers for this person instead of I'm supposed to listen, ask challenging questions, and pull those answers out of the folks who are across the table from me. I think that there's also a great opportunity in the community setting to have coaching support issues-based work. And for an example in Battle Creek, how that would look is there's a lot of racial equity and inclusion work happening in Battle Creek. And what we know is that coaches can help support that work by being able to be more curious, ask powerful questions, and support the folks in the community that are trying to move that work forward. So when I talk about issues-based, it might be immigration reform, it might be racial equity, it might be working with foster families. It doesn't matter what the issue is, but that coaching can actually support the leaders in those initiatives, as well as give those leaders skills to be able to connect more deeply with the people that they're leading. Okay, that's all I can think. You ready?
Whenever you're ready.
So one of the things that Leadership That Works has been let me start again.
Yeah, sorry.
One of the things that Leadership That Works has made a commitment to is to be a culturally aware and competent company. And what that means for the work that we do is that when we train coaches, we look at the cultural component in the training. So as a company, we have looked at what's our curriculum, what are the competencies we teach, what is the makeup of our faculty, what's the development of our faculty around cultural awareness. For us, it's not about diversity. It's really about the self-awareness that comes before you start to put your focus on who they are. So we don't look to just fill our rooms with a diverse crowd, although we do that. We look to what do we as trainers need to do? What's the self-awareness work we need to do to be able to welcome and include all people into this process? So that when we train coaches, one of our goals is to help them do that with the folks that they work with. So what's the self-awareness work that our coaches need to do? And what's the knowledge base they need to have? And how do they learn to really engage with people whose culture is different than their own? As I said before, part of that is being able to be curious. Part of that is being able to ask questions, have difficult conversations. Those are some of the things that we teach in coach training. And what I know is that for coaching to really take hold in a community, for the coach approach to really be powerful, we have to also integrate the cultural and racial equity piece into it. Otherwise, it's just a myth that we're going to spread out into a community, or that we're going to be able to engage leaders in parts of the community that have not been engaged. It's our work to do first, and it's our coaches' work to do first. Okay?
All right, whenever you're ready, Holly.
Okay. All right. Hi, my name is Holly. I am from Alita Connection, bilingual coach from family. Hold on, let me start again. Sorry.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Holly from Alita Connection. I am a bilingual coach, Burmese bilingual coach, and what does coach mean for me is that it's help us to understand what is really inside of us, and then and for me, like, coaching helped me to get outside the box. Like, I feel like before coaching, I feel like I am inside the box, feeling that if it's one problem come out, I feel like, okay, what should I deal with this problem? But after coaching, I was like, oh, now I don't need to coach the problem. I just need to coach the person who is in front of me. So that really make me think that, like, think so differently than the way I used to think. So that really helped me.
Okay. That was good.
Hi, my name is Kim Lian. I'm a family coach at Ali Teleconnection, bilanguage, Burmese and English. From this coaching training, it's meant a lot to myself, my own family, to working with my home visit family, my co-worker, and all of our community. And I've been coached, especially my husband, because pretty much we've been newly to introduce this coaching. It's really special, and with our Burmese family too, because we've been here really newly to neighbors here. So it's always useful to ask the powerful questions and especially acknowledge them, because most of the time we did not have a chance to acknowledge to them, and they never have somebody who was listening to them. So this listening skills are always been useful, and usually naming what's the presence right now, what they are struggling right now, what they want to see for the future, what they want to do for their children, or what the family will be to doing. So that's always been useful. And from the coaching in the background, it's mean a lot to me, especially I'm a secretary of the Burmese Christian Fellowship, so especially when we host a meeting, they turn it back to me, because I think they feel like when we do a coaching skill, when we use them to ask them questions, different viewpoint, because a lot of when we like to practicing with those member, pretty much they have had time to understand each other, just decided just one point. So when as a coach, when we ask them with different viewpoint, and what was it, how do they feel about it, so that's been always been useful. Especially every day we have a lot of home visit too, so the parents always need to support from us. So instead of what to do, telling that what to do, then just support them what they need and acknowledge them with what we see, what look like the 5 sense of like what we hearing, what we see in them, what we saw in them. So that's always been useful for this coaching. So it's been really excited to continue to practice more coaching and to working with and to learn, to willing to learn always this coaching. So we've been thankful for this leadership that work too. Thank you.
So start?
Whenever you're ready.
Okay. What the most impact from coaching is, especially for me, I use like coaching a lot right now, like a lot to for myself. Like it's really helped me how to think differently, and it's really helped me to understand that what is really inside in my heart. So because of coaching, I am able to understand myself. After that, I can reach the family and to my work and to my families. And also, I use the coaching as a background a lot. And let's say when I have a problem, I just say, okay, what should you do next, Holly? You know, something like that. So it's really, really helped me. And let me read right here a little bit, sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And the next thing is that when I use coaching, before coaching, like I just talk to them people like, okay, this is what you should do, this is what you should do. I just telling them. But after coaching, I ask them differently, like, okay, what do you think about? I ask them what really in their heart. So it's, my sister or my my family noticed it. And so, like, it's really, after they noticed it, I was like, oh, yeah, I use coaching. So that's really, really, I feel like that's really good for my family too. And then, I really thanks to this program, and I love it. And I will continue working on this. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Susan Clark, and I am the coordinator of the Great Start Collaborative here in Calhoun County.
Sorry, Sue, 1 second. Take 2. Go ahead whenever you're ready.
Hi, my name is Susan Clark, and I am the coordinator of the Great Start Collaborative here in Calhoun County. Today I'd like to share how I feel that this coaching training and coaching as a whole has impacted my life, I guess, personally and professionally. First and foremost, I think that coaching has impacted the way that I parent my children. And my children are nearly grown. My youngest is 16, but I grew up in a home where possibilities were endless for my siblings and myself. And as a single mom, that changed a little bit when I had children to raise. Keeping them safe and struggling financially, I wanted the best for my children, and I didn't want them to end up single parents struggling. And so throughout my children's childhood, I've been guiding them. Pretty proud of the fact that I was guiding them too. And this coaching experience made me realize that empowering has much more beneficial outcomes than guiding a child or giving advice. And so using that with my children, I've seen some great things come out of just handing over the power to my children. And still guiding, but so that's one big thing. Another big thing is my work with childcare providers. And I've been a mentor for years and years, and so I've prescribed the changes that people have needed, and I've given advice. And coaching has allowed me to kind of hand that power back over to the provider and let them decide what needs to be done and how they're going to do it. And I believe that because they are making those decisions and I am just their cheerleader instead of their guide, they're more engaged in whatever it is that they're doing, and they feel like they own the outcome. And so I feel like coaching really, really has made a big difference in my effectiveness as a coach and a cheerleader for the child care providers in our county. Thank you.
And what was your name?
Zoe.
Zoe. Okay, Zoe. Please tell me your name and where you're from and what organization you represent.
My name is Zoe Brainerd. I am a family coach with Early Childhood Connections, and I'm also the parent liaison for the Great Start Collaborative Parent Coalition. And the Parent Coalition is where I've used a lot of the coaching, working with families with young children, ages birth to 12 years in that aspect. And the whole coaching experience for me, working with parents and families, I've used it as a tool to empower parents, and just to try and meet the parents where they're at, and build on their own strengths, and just helping them to understand what their own individual strengths are as parents. And I've tried to help them to just be more aware that their role as a parent and as their child's first and most important teacher is is crucial in their child's development, and coaching has allowed me to help them embrace that, and help them to realize what their own goals and what their own values are, and to work with those and be the best parents they could possibly be, being more involved in their child's school and in their child's development. So,
Whenever you're ready, just introduce your name, tell us where you're from, and what organization you represent.
Okay, my name is Israel Flores, and I work with Early Childhood Connections. You say, where am I from, too? No.
Start over, and if you'd like to say where you're
No,
from.
I'm just asking, like, no, my name is Israel Flores, and I work with Early Childhood Connections. The question that was for me is that, what has coaching training mean to you and your work? Well, I have to say that coaching has been changing my life, my personal life. Just give it examples that, listen truly to my wife. So now I can watch a little bit more TV, which is true. But also with the community that I work with, I think it's really important to be present, to listen to them. So coaching is give me that opportunity to learn those skills, and applying to these skills to those families. The results of those, to be putting attention and listen truly to the community, I think makes put me in this position to learn and understand a little bit more, and even better, the community here in Bald Creek. So coaching has been, it's been a big impact for me, and I will say the community here in Bald Creek. One of the stories that I would like to share is I have, of course, I don't know how many families, but I have families, and one of these families, I was talking to the dad of this family, and that was so unbelievable how I try to coach. So mom comes to me and tell me that that they have some issues or whatever. So I get the opportunity to talk to dad and use coaching on him. The next day, this mom calls me and say like, okay, so what did you do? I mean, my husband is changed. I mean, a lot. I mean, what's going on? So I think using coaching, and when you explain to those families what's coaching, and of course they really want to learn more about it. And so this family talked to her cousin, and so this cousin just call me and says like, I heard that you talked to this family, so I wonder if I can make an appointment with you. And I'm like, it's not like the just to make an appointment, but I think that's really important, and I think it's a really good opportunity for these families to learn coaching, so they can pass it on to more families, more people. It can be everywhere.
Tuned in. All right, whenever you're ready, go ahead and introduce yourself and your organization you represent.
Hello, I'm Teresa Durham, Director of the Nonprofit Alliance at Kellogg Community College. Coaching is a powerful individual, organization, and community capacity building tool, and I am so excited that I have had the opportunity to participate in coaching throughout the last year and a half. How participating in that coach training has really changed the way I think about my work is that at the Nonprofit Alliance and in my role, most of that is in a consultative format. And what coaching has brought to me and to the work that we do now going forward is taking our work from being more transactional to transforming. Oh, God, can I start again? I just blew it. Can I start again?
Yeah.
Thank you. My words got
Sounded awesome over there.
I know, but I was messing up that. Can I start from the very beginning?
Absolutely.
Okay. They
Go
do this
ahead
at
and-
Access Vision with me all the time, and so, okay.
Go ahead and introduce
Great.
your name and the organization you're from.
Hello, I'm Teresa Durham, Director of the Nonprofit Alliance at Kellogg Community College. Coaching is a powerful individual, organization, and community capacity building tool, and I have been so excited to be involved and to participate in coach training over the last year and a half. How it has changed the way I think about my work and the work of the Nonprofit Alliance is that the majority of the work that I have been doing and that we have instilled in our organization to some degree is transactional. Organizations need something, executive directors, staff, volunteers, and board need something, and we fulfill that need. It's often in a spot project way and in a way that just fulfills it, right on the spot. And while that can be very impactful, coaching has really helped me to see how this work can be transformational. So it's really moving me from recognizing that in many ways I've been a transactional leader to really moving toward transformational leadership by really using the skills and the techniques and the strategies that coaching can bring to organizations. And so I am so excited about bringing forward a way to be able to take the coaching work deeper within organizations at a board level, at an executive director level, and at a staff level, and an organizational-wide level through strategic planning, through board governance training primarily, to help organizations and leaders within the organization to see the potential that they have in really changing community conditions, how they can strengthen themselves as an organization, the culture in which they work in, to really transform the lives that they affect each and every day. That to me is exciting work, and it's work that we've not seen before. When I think of traditional strategic planning, how coaching can really change the face of that work, how it can really move organizations to think and do things differently is so powerful, and I'm so energized around this work, and I'm so thrilled that there's a cohort of individuals that I've been able to participate with, and I look forward to working with additional individuals as the coaching work really spreads, not only on an individual level, but within organizations and throughout the community. Thank you.
And have fun with it.
Right. My name is Damar Gardner, and I am a clinical therapist, a organizational development consultant, as well as a nonprofit professional. I do work in Southwest Michigan, so have had the privilege of working in Battle Creek for the last couple years, but I actually live in Kalamazoo County. Do I keep going? You'll edit that, right?
I will.
Okay.
That was a great introduction.
Okay.
Now, if you want to go right into an answer to your question, do you have one
Sure.
picked out?
Yeah, we'll start with the first one.
Okay. How has participating in coach training changed the way you think about your work?
Yes. Participating in coach training has changed the way I think about my work in many, many ways. As I shared in my introduction, I'm a clinical therapist, and right now I see about 5 young people between the ages of 7 and 17, and I find that using elements from coaching like powerful questioning, like requests, have been very, very effective in the work that I'm doing with young people. I think it provides them a space where they feel heard, where they feel like I'm present with them, where they really feel like they have the ability to make change and that they can actually be a part of decision making. For many of them, it's a first. It's just not the way that they've been socialized. And so I find that the power in my clinical relationships has actually shifted a little bit to have more power on the client versus me as the clinician. In terms of the organizational development work that I do, I find that if I'm working with one of my consulting clients, and particularly as we get ready to enter into an agreement, into a body of work, that I'm using the powerful questions to really get an understanding of what the expectations are for them and helping them to really own the process, which sometimes with consulting, as coming in as the expert, I may come in, deliver the product, and then nothing necessarily gets done after the implementation of it. And what I'm finding through using coaching skills is that my clients are actually owning the work, and so I'm seeing changes that are happening well after I'm no longer engaged in that work. So that's one of the benefits I think that can happen for consultants that are doing organizational development. And then from a nonprofit perspective, I did start my own 501c3 organization a couple years ago as a result of the CDF Freedom Schools program. And what I find through our organization, which is really all about promoting high quality youth development experiences for all children throughout Kalamazoo County. So we really focus on ensuring there aren't barriers there to participate. What I found is that the coaching works with the staff that I work with, so I've actually incorporated it into my supervision, and then I have the staff that I supervise incorporate it in their supervision as well. So for example, when we go in and we do classroom observations, we take time out after that to use the coaching framework to provide feedback and to really get an understanding of what the staff person's expectations are associated with the learnings, if you will, that are discovered. So it really helps them to own the process. It helps them to really think through what is going to make their work better for the kids that they work with every day. And so I feel that I'm really just getting started in terms of using coaching from a professional perspective, and I'm really, really excited to be able to continue to cultivate my skills and to continue to make an impact and pay it forward and see how that matriculation happen in all areas that I'm working in.
All right, whenever you're ready, go ahead and introduce your name, the organization you represent, and answer the question of your choice.
Okay. I'm Jessica Bankston and I work for Early Childhood Connections. And participating in coach training has really changed how I think about the families I work with. I used to think that I needed to help them set goals, and it's really helped me realize that they have their own goals and that my job is just to help them explore them, and they know what steps they need to take. So it's really changed that whole dynamic with the family, and it's interesting because they do realize it, and a lot of people have made a lot of progress, and it's so exciting to be able to acknowledge them and help them celebrate things that they've accomplished on their own. And it's funny because sometimes people, like even my friends and family, will say, no, I really just want your advice, because that's what they were used to. And now they understand, and I'll just tell them, like, I could do that, but it's not what's going to be most helpful for you. So it's really changed that whole dynamic of people coming for advice versus people coming to explore their own dreams and goals.
All right, Ms. Russell, whenever you're ready.
Okay. My name is Jennifer Nottingham. I work with United Way of the Battle Creek and Kalamazoo region. How has participating in coach training changed the way you think about your work? A lot of people approach us and ask us to solve problems for them. And there are some situations where that's appropriate, but coaching allows you to introduce a different lens to problem solving, to encourage the individuals and organizations that you're working with to think about not only what are the solutions, but why are the problems important, what's important about the issues that they're discussing. Think differently about the solutions and step into bigger visions than maybe you might get at a typical conversation table. In my work, I often have an opportunity to apply coaching in group settings. So when I am sitting with a table of community members or residents or leaders, and we are discussing some issue that is of great import to community, we will think about why that particular issue is important, and we let the group generate their own solutions. It's often tempting to come in and introduce your own ideas into the conversations, and there are certainly places where that's appropriate, but coaching allows us to empower other people to think about solutions that work best for them. Have you seen people respond to you in different ways as you apply the coach approach? Yes, again, people often will approach me as a potential problem solver, and I do really enjoy solving problems for people and coming up with solutions, but by asking them powerful questions, by figuring out the values, by identifying the transformational agendas, that shifts the conversation dynamics so that together we can come up with bigger and better solutions than what one person would have come up with on their own.
Jennifer, what do you think is possible around using coaching in this community?
That's a big question.
Just anything you have to say. Whether,
okay.
What do you think is possible?
So, coaching has the power to transform a person's mindset, a community's mindset, to thinking only small about what immediately affects them to what is good for everybody. There are ways to incorporate the coaching paradigm into a lot of the different bodies of work that are happening in community. There's a lot of work that's going on around racial equity, and incorporating a coaching mindset will help to build relationships, to build trust, to see that when you're creating that space for one another, that there's opportunities to learn from one another and create a bigger vision for community. It's complementary to some of the Harwood work that's going on in community. You know, Harwood gives you a really nice framework for turning outwards. Coaching allows you to add a little bit more meat to that. And so in the individual relationships, when you're talking with clients around a table, asking and knowing when to incorporate appropriate coaching practices into that model, it can really act as a support for that body of work. I think the real power of coaching will happen when it reaches a certain saturation point in community. Right now, there are a number of community members and leaders and service providers that understand the importance of coaching. When the real transformation will happen is when we have the entire community understanding what the potential of coaching and what it really has to offer for value.
All right, Donna, whenever you're ready, just say your name, the organization you're from, and go from there.
Hi, my name is Donna Lartigue, and I'm the Associate Director at the Arca Center for Social Justice Leadership at Kalamazoo College in Kalamazoo, Michigan. I've lived in Battle Creek for over 10 years, and I believe that the strength of a community lies in its ability to provide opportunities that all people must have in order to create a better life for themselves and their families. And I know that through coaching, you can create personal transformation, but I'm really curious about how we can use coaching to go deeper and catalyze change and transform our community so that all people are valued in our community and that they all have the opportunities to create the life that they want for themselves and for their families. And so I'm interested in continuing my journey with coaching so that I can continue to figure out ways that we can really help to transform our community and make it a better place for all of us to live. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, whenever you're ready, introduce your name, organization, and have fun with it.
Shelley Bess, Calhoun Intermediate School District. I'm the Director of Early Childhood. One thing I wanted to share about the coaching experience for me is the amazing way that coaching is so, oh no, cut that. Coaching for me and the experience that I've had with coaching is the way that it's so flexible. You can really use coaching in so many areas of your life. Coaching can really apply in your family. So if a person really wants to be a leader in their home, if a person wants to be a leader within their team, if a person wants to be a leader within their community or within their organization, when I've been using coaching to show up different. I want to be a better leader, a better administrator, a better supervisor, and a better person. I've used it within my role as a board member at Community Action Head Start. I've used it as a supervisor. One of the things that I really want to use my coaching for is to make sure that the things that I do on a daily basis are very intentional. I use the coaching skills to make sure that the things that I do aren't just tasks or daily activities. They're things that are intentional to bring people up, to make sure that we're bringing up new leaders that have the skills and the ability to become better leaders and better people in our community. Battle Creek has an amazing opportunity with coaching, and we want to make sure that we take that opportunity to the next level and that everybody in our community gets that opportunity.
Introduce your name, organization, answer a question.
My name is Lissa Howley. I am an associate with BC Pulse in Battle Creek. I think for me, the way that coaching has transformed the way that I'm in relationships with people. I think that it's transformed the way that I view community, and it's really transformed the way that I want to be in community. When I began with Leadership That Works last year, in the initial training, we had to identify our coaches stand. And I first identified my coaches stand as that everyone is capable. And then I realized that that actually wasn't exactly what I wanted my coaches stand to be. It ended up being that everybody is capable of surprising me. Because what I found out was that my expectations for people, they can be exceeded. And when I view the community in that way, and when I put that hat on, when I'm working with the community, it really transforms the way that I do my work. Coaching has also showed me that more is possible in this community. And then I think that coaching allows for a greater possibility to effectively and responsibly and respectfully engage residents and engage different cultures and engage different communities in respectful ways. So I think coaching opens up opportunities to really just build a more responsible and more equitable community. Hopefully there's something from that.
What are some of the possibilities that you see in coaching?
I should have known. I think so when we talk about the possibilities that come from coaching, when I'm in my coach's stand, that people are capable of surprising me, I think that allows me to view humans as more than I just see at face value. And when that's possible, I know that people can do more than what they're doing right now, and that we can be better than we are right now as a community, and we can treat people better than we're treating them right now, and it just gives me hope. I hate being on camera.
And the organization you're from.
Okay, my name is Dana McNutt. I am a family coach with the Early Childhood Connections program here in Battle Creek. Coaching has done so much in the work that we are doing with the Early Childhood Connections program. A large help to us has been using the visioning with families. We are able to go into the home and talk to parents and ask them about the type of things that they would like to see for their children, and then we're able to ask them how are we able to make those type of things happen. So it's been awesome in being able to use those skills and having that skill set and working with families.
All right, Kathy, whenever you're ready, your name and organization.
Hi, I'm Kathy Zenda Wilson with BC Pulse here in Battle Creek. I'd like to start by saying that on a personal level, how transformational this coaching has been for me. I actually, as a result of engaging in this group or with this group, left my old position and started this new work. I mean, I'm not sure that I would have had the courage or the strength without the perspectives exercise that Virginia took me through to actually take that leap. And so, you know, I'm sitting here today with a new organization as a result of that work. And so it was really powerful. So that on a personal testimonial side is really powerful. But where there's so much potential here is that if we can create a culture of coaching in the context of Battle Creek and its DNA, then everything else is possible, right? So it's a platform, a springboard for the other things. If we want to talk about racial equity, this is a way to do it. It's not just about how we show up in that conversation, although that's an important part. It's also how we use these tools and apply them to create the systems change necessary for equity to be even possible. So I think the opportunities are endless. I think they're limited by us limiting ourselves and what it can be. And so I look forward to this community staying together so that we can actually be really strategic about applying it and thinking, really innovatively about how we use these tools, from classrooms to nonprofit organizations to working with families to addressing systemic racism. I mean, I think that the opportunities are endless.
Okay, whenever you're ready, your name and organization.
All right, my name is Kate Flores, and I work with Voices. I'd like to tell a couple, 3 stories of how coaching I've used and coaching has had an impact in a few different realms of my work. One that has been really significant has been around creating, transforming a work culture to one where more coaching is integrated in what we do, where we're building leaders among our staff. I supervise right now a staff of 6, and for years, again, I work with the Latino community, and for years we had this dilemma about hiring people in who didn't necessarily, if they were coming locally, didn't necessarily come with all the skills and capacities that were needed. And I always, for years, I've been here for 5 years, I struggled with how do I mentor? I'd like to be able to mentor them at the same time, but I don't know how to do that. And so I'd find myself giving a lot of advice and telling them what to do, and I could tell that it wasn't effective. I could tell I wasn't getting what I wanted of them being able to experiment and create and bring forth their ideas, and coaching was what I was looking for and what I needed at that time. I didn't know it back then. I wouldn't have known it was coaching. I knew that I had a learning edge there, that I needed to learn something of how to better build other people's leadership skills. I needed to learn how to be a better mentor, but I didn't know how. And so coaching was exactly what I needed. And we were fortunate to have all of our staff trained in coaching. And that significantly has contributed to creating this culture of coaching within the organization, where people's strengths are being utilized, people's creativity is being realized, there's potential that's being developed, and people feel valued and feel that they can experiment and bring forth their ideas and do work in really innovative ways, and that they have a supportive culture around them to do that. So that's one area where it's been really impactful. The other has been in my realm, you could say as a community leader. I go to a lot of different meetings and collaborative groups, and recently had an experience in a meeting where the skills of coaching can be directly integrated. I mean, this is the coaching in the background. There was a presentation around collaboration, and I think the personal leadership skills that coaching has given me helped me to have the courage to step forth and say, actually, I need to challenge this group to think differently about this. This is a certain narrative, and I want to challenge us to have a different viewpoint. So both being able to challenge, have the viewpoint, the ability to step forward, and say, challenge what was going on. And then at the end, it led to some really great discussion that got much deeper than has ever happened in these meetings. And then it said, well, come back to, all right, where's the accountability? Where are the next steps, the action steps? Because also, this is some of the great value of coaching. It brings it back to then the action, the accountability. Because what often tends to happen if you ever get to that place of having deeper conversation, if you don't have that other piece, then people just leave away and thinking, oh, well, there was that, nothing ever happened with it. Or, people complained and nothing ever happened with it. And so, in that particular instance, we were getting to the end of the meeting, it was gonna close, and again, I said, wait a second, all right, what are we gonna do? What's the next easy step? So I see it having that transformative potential for how people show up in community, in these collaborative groups to I think really make those type of collective efforts much more effective, and reaching deeper instead of just at surface level. So there's that aspect. And I sort of touched on, the personal aspect, especially over these last few months of the certification program. I can say that, most important learning for me has been not actually to focus on the coaching skills, but to finding the strength and ability in myself and knowing what works for me to get into the coaching stand, and showing up as that way of being and trusting that when I'm in that space it's very centered and grounded and even the true and holistic me, then that's where I have the power and wisdom to be able to bring forth leadership that impacts more greatly in the community. That's it.
Thank you, Kate.
Thank you.
Sam,
All right, Virginia, whenever you're ready.
Okay. So you hear coaches talk a lot about the coach's stand, and I want to just talk a little bit about what that means. When we are training coaches, one of the things we try to do is to help them learn ways to shift their mindset that they have about other human beings. So we start with the question that says, what is your attitude about human beings? Do you think they're flawed inherently? Do you think they're sort of good? And then we help them to craft what we call the coach's stand. And the coach's stand is, what is the attitude you choose to have about human beings? So it might be something like, they're whole and they're moving toward a greater expression of that wholeness. Or it might be they're capable and I'm willing to be surprised. You heard Alyssa's talk about that. So what I want to say about the coach's stand is that it is really one of the ways we help people shift the mindset that they have about other humans to turn it into a more empowering attitude. The more you believe in someone, the more they rise to the occasion. So we train coaches to have that deeper belief in human beings. Is that okay? Is taking coaching to all people. So when we start to think about what did that look like, in the early days we thought that means we just train a lot of professional coaches. And then we met Cindy Rubel, the visionary woman, and we started talking about what might this look like as we start to integrate it into community. So what we've now learned at Leadership That Works is we can't impact all people if a couple of things don't happen. If we don't really get good at what does a coach approach look like, having those coaching skills in your back pocket, we have to get really good at that. And we have to get really much more culturally aware so that we can actually impact all people. So that's been some work that Leadership That Works has taken on as an organization. And the work we do in Battle Creek, it's really a beautiful circle. The work we do here really feeds the work we do in the rest of our company. What we learn in our company feeds back into the work happening in Battle Creek. I would just love to have a chance for our guests to just say their names. So let's do that. Do you want to start?
Hi, I'm Nancy.
So Nancy, tell us just a half a sentence about yourself.
It's very funny, I'm looking around the room and I do know a lot of people because I've been involved with United Way and the Community Foundation and the hospital, and so very much a part of the community and have heard about this movement going on. And I'm just so excited to celebrate all of you today. I'm just really thrilled.
Thanks,
Yeah.
thanks, thank you. So I think you're next, Mary.
I'm the next? Okay. I'm Mary Barkley, and I'm project coordinator for Early Childhood Connections. And I think we might have been one of the first groups to bring Leadership That Works into the community and invited other community members and organizations and agencies to take part in the training with us. We're happy to be here today.
Thanks. Sonia. Sonia?
Oh, hi, I'm Sonia, and I work for Early Childhood Connections. I just finished my PAT training, and I am very happy to be here, rejoicing with everybody and celebrating.
Welcome, thanks.
Thank you.
Christy?
I am Christy, and administrative assistant, one of the administrative assistants for Early Childhood Connections.
Rebecca, Holly's sister,
Welcome.
Hi everyone, I'm Susan and I'm a student at MSU.
Great, and you're Holly's sister too, right?
Yes.
Yeah, great. Glad you're here.
Hi, my name is Mary, I'm Kim's sister. I go to the university.
Great, welcome. Let's see, we're over here to Cindy.
Oh, I'm Cindy Rubel and I work for MSU. But prior to that, I helped birth this. I'm very proud mother today.
That's great. Yay. Okay. So we can go to the next one. So let's talk about just a tiny bit. First of all, those of you who know us well, you have never seen a PowerPoint in any of our meetings. So I just want you to point out that we have a PowerPoint. This is a really big deal. So what we want to talk about just a minute is these fabulous coaches and what they have done. So the first thing you need to know is they have worked really, really hard. And those of you that are bosses to any of them know how much time it took away from their work to do this program. Thank you. They came into this program having had, on the average, somewhere between 25 and 90 hours of prior coach training. We actually had somebody who had been at 90 hours worth. And during this 9 months, they did 70 hours of coaching. Each one of them did 50 hours of coaching practice during this 9 months. Now they're all going, yeah, we sure did, right? A lot of work. Some of that is one-on-one coaching. Some of it is what we call coaching in the background. So coaching in the background is really about how I take those skills and I put them in my back pocket. So while I'm being a caseworker or a family coach, I pull those skills out and they run in the background all the time. So the way I interact with people is really about how do I, well, is this the place I might ask a powerful question? Or is this the place that an acknowledgement or a challenge is needed? So that they can pull those out in all circumstances. In all their client interactions, in all their meetings, when they're up in front of a room, whatever it is, they can use that coach approach. So we put a lot of focus on that this year. In this group of coaches, they have given over 1,300 hours of coaching to Battle Creek in the past 9 months. That is huge. And we have today 25 certified community coaches. So actually what I really want is I want all of you coaches to come up here for a second. Just come up here. And even though you're the bulk of the room, the rest of us are going to give you a proper hand. You can bow or curtsy or whatever, but really know that you have done an incredible job at supporting your community. So just wanted to start out with that.
And you were the first coaches anywhere to be certified community coaches. That's right. Woo!
So what we're going to do in the next 20 or 30 minutes is Sharon and I are going to talk to you some about coaching and about the work that's been done in the community. And then 5 of the community coaches are going to come up and tell you their stories. We'll do some thank yous, and then we'll eat cookies. So I want to just do a little bit of history about what happens when you come into a community and introduce coaching. First of all, I think the most important thing we've done, and we didn't plan it, now we know to plan it in other places, we came into the community as coaches. So what that looks like is, when consultants come in, very often what happens is they say, here's our framework, here's our training, here's how you should use it. How we came in was, here's our framework, here's our training, let's train a whole bunch of you, and then you're going to tell us how you want to use it. And that's what we've done in Battle Creek. And I think that what it has brought is it's brought the ability of the community to own it in a different way. Now, we've only scratched the surface. You know, there's a long way to go to have coaching embedded in this community. But I think what's really awesome about that surprise learning we had is that that's exactly what we want the coaches to do with their clients, right? We want them to go in to interact with their clients and say, here's some things I have to offer you. How would you like to use it? And that's what this group of coaches has really learned how to do. How to take a stand that empowers the people that they work with.
There's a richness of ideas that are coming up from the coaches about what's possible in Battle Creek. Things that have already been done and ideas for what can be done on an even bigger scale.
So this morning, one of the ideas that came up was, I think we need a coaching center. You know, we need a place where people can come, where we can do trainings, where we can coach leaders that need it in the community, where we can start to gel and pull this work together. I don't know if that'll happen, but there's a lot of ideas like that floating around from this group of people. A couple of other things I want to say just about the coaching model in general that we use. I think one of the greatest benefits of coaching is that it's one of the only ways I know where you can change the mindset of service providers. You can give people all the skills they want, but if they still think that the people they work with are incapable of changing their lives or being in charge of their lives or aren't whole and good, then all the skills are not going to mean very much. So we have a process in our coaching work that helps people develop a coach's stand. What that's really about is what's your attitude about other human beings? And how can we help you shift that attitude and choose one that works better for you and for the people you work with? You'll hear the coaches who talk in a minute come up and talk about that, but I think that has been one of the things that we have really seen that has shifted the work that people do. Moved our coaches out of a, I'm going to fix it and I'm going to problem solve it mode into, wow, it's not my job to fix it. And what is it that you want to do as the leader in your family or as the expert on your life? So I think those are just a couple of things I've seen that really have shifted the way we've worked here. Battle Creek.
So when coaches support communities, that impact in 4 main areas. I mean, there's more than 4, but there are 4 that are key. One is in the area of leadership and developing leadership capabilities. There's also increasing collaboration, increasing participation, and then impacting core community issues. So in the area of leadership, it changes the way people are in conversation with each other. It really changes the way they connect with each other, the way they're listening to each other, and what's possible. So instead of only the problem focus, it becomes, how do we empower people to do this work? And how do we how do we work together? How can I support the people that work for me? How can I help them develop their leadership capabilities, regardless of the role they're in?
I'm going to add something, Sharon. Holly was talking this morning, and one of the things she said, I think it was you, Holly, who said, oh my gosh, I used to go in and think there's a problem. I can solve problems. And then I realized, oh, I guess my job is just to focus on the person. So I thought that was a really great way to put it.
Yeah, and the opportunities. The next thing is a really big thing. It's increasing collaboration. So it's breaking down barriers. Instead of the competition people are, have been in traditionally in the past, it's how do we work together? Not just to focus on problems and who gets the credit for solving them, but how do we work together to really seize opportunities and solve the things that are challenging for us in new and innovative ways. And then by encouraging participation, and with collaboration, you're getting diversity. So you're getting a mixture of ideas, and diversity in the sense of, having a variety of people equally represented, as well as getting a whole diversity of ideas that can come together. And it's about helping people identify their gifts and their skills, and then applying that in the places where it's most important and most needed in the community. And then the last area of key community issues, the coaching approach leads to sustainable solutions, so that it's not just that you have to have people come in and do training and then people forget. It's that they keep it going, they sustain it, and there's also accountability and clear roles and responsibilities. So in terms of the impacts of coaching in the community, these are some of the things that coaches have actually said when they've been doing their work. So, you know, the open, honest dialogue that happens in a coaching relationship is one thing. You know, clients see possibilities instead of problems all of the time. Coaches ask those powerful questions, those open-ended questions, the what and how questions that get people thinking deeper, developing awareness, and envisioning things that they hadn't thought about before. People think differently about problems. Instead of problems being limiting, they start to see possibilities and what can open up for them. It empowers people in the community to work together in ways that they hadn't thought about before. You wind up with more sustainable and impactful solutions. People get to talk about real issues. They're not just on the surface anymore, talking about surface things, but they get down to the heart of the issue. What's really important? What do we want to do about it? What do we want for our community? And what am I willing to do to be a part of that? And it's bringing leadership skills to people who don't see themselves as leaders. They may not be positional leaders, but they still have the ability to impact the community, and we want those people to step up and take those leadership skills.
So one of the things that I think is really important as we start to develop this model of community coaching, and as we said before, this isn't happening anywhere. So the model for this is really being built here in Battle Creek. There is huge amount of national and international interest in the model. People are thinking about it, but nobody's really doing it yet. So we're in that experimental phase. In coach training, we talk a lot about being experimental and being expansive and raising the heat. As our friends from the Kansas Leadership Center taught us, it's all about those things. So when we start to look at that, we go to what ways do we connect in the community? So we started to think, this is really based on our coaches telling us in their evaluations what kinds of ways they're working. And so we put them into these categories. We don't know if these are the final categories, but they're what we can see so far. So we know that coaching impacts the personal. And what I think that's really about is how do you help people see what their gifts are and how they can offer those in service of their families, themselves, their churches, their schools, their community. I think there's a lot of other things that work on a personal level, but I think that's really core to how coaching impacts the personal.
Then, once people have their own insights into their personal awareness, they can turn their attention to their family. So how do I interact with my family members in ways that are much more effective than we've communicated before? You know, what are my visions for my family, for my children? You know, what do I hope they'll achieve, and how can I support them in getting there through the use of powerful questions instead of just telling teenagers what to do or children what to do? Asking them the kinds of questions that open them up and get them relying on their own, you know, self-awareness and believing in their own ability to solve their problems. So from there, yeah, it moves to organizational. And once people see that they have power they didn't realize that they had in their own lives, their family lives, they start to impact their organizations. So they bring those skills into their organizations, and they're actually interacting with people at work in new ways, in more effective ways. Less competition, more collaboration. How do we change the culture of our organization to achieve the goals we want to achieve?
More interesting meetings, we hear that a lot.
Yeah.
At the community level, I think there's a lot that can happen at the community level, but what I see are basically two main areas. One is the thing that we've been talking quite a bit about around service providing and how does coaching affect that community-wide. I think the other place that it's really possible to move into more clearly is issues-based work. So I've been thinking about that a lot with the racial equity work that's happening in Battle Creek, and we've been talking a lot this morning about how does coaching affect that and how do we want to support that work. I think there's a lot of areas. If you have an immigrants' rights movement happening in your city, a food movement, I know some of those, there are some of the things that are showing up here. How do the coaches in this community support the leaders of those movements so that those issues get resolved? And I think there's a lot of potential there that we have barely been able to touch. The other place that I think I call it sort of the wave that's coming, is around working with families, parents, youth, really specific and targeted uses of coaching and coach training so that the skills get in the hands of all sorts of people in the community. So, you know, there's some ideas and planning going around about how we might start to impact those particular areas. Oh, so this is fun. This is just who they've worked with this year. These are just some of the folks that you all have said you have done work with in those 1,300 hours. Oh, that's all we're going to talk at you.
Yeah, so we want to actually invite, I mean, this is a quote from one of the coaches. We want to invite 5 of the graduates to come up and give their talk a little bit to tell you from their perspective what coaching has meant. And we'll have them come up one at a time. The first is Kathy Grosso. Yay!
And I want to just tell you, coaches, that if you're not loud enough, Sam will tell you.
Sam. Okay, so can I see a show of hands as to how many of you did not think I'd be standing here today? Come on, be honest. So, thanks to Rubel, I came kicking and screaming to this training. I don't even know how long ago that was, not this part, but quite a while ago. So, went through that first 3 days and was not real impressed. Honestly, I thought this is not for me, but there was something there, and probably most of it was my trust in you, and that you saw something. So I'm going to keep at it for a little while because I trust her. If you know me, I'm very outcome-based. I like charts and I like graphs and I like strategic plans and flow charts and problem solving. So this felt a little bit outside of that, like a lot outside of that at first. But then I came back and still skeptical. Didn't like all this, what are you feeling? What's your body telling you? You all know, and I'm still having a hard time with that. I'm in the certification process, if you can believe that, I am. And there's a lot of that going on there too, about and I keep telling them, I don't feel nothing, I got nothing. So I've gotten a reputation in that class too, I think. So anyway, I came back for that second set and started to see something that amazed me. So, you know, if I were to talk to my friend Nancy here and she comes to me with an issue, the old way I might have dealt with that, not might have, I did, was I listened, but really what I was doing was figuring out how to tell her how to solve the problem. So listening has taken on a whole new meaning. She would have been very grateful for what I would have told her because I would have had the right answer, of course, because that's how that felt, you know, that problem solving, and she would have been grateful and she would have gone off, and the best case scenario is that maybe she would have taken my advice, solved the problem, but never, you know, had no capabilities of her own to solve it the next time. Worst case is it wasn't her own, she walks away and doesn't do anything with that advice because it didn't come from her, it came from me. So that what I saw in that second set of training in 5 to 10 minutes through demos, but also through you and others who were coaching me and each other, I saw issues get identified quickly. I saw coaches that really listened. We were taught how to really listen. I saw questions that probed. I saw coaches believing in the resourcefulness that each of us has. And that, you can't fake that. Well, I guess you can, but you really can't. I mean, when it comes down to it, I mean, you can fake that you think that way, but really, in order to be effective, you really have to believe that people have what's in them to solve their own issues or problems. So I saw that happen, and I saw it happen fast, and I saw it happen genuine, and I saw it, and I saw it, and I saw it over and over again through all that training and through this past year. And that clicked for me. That was it. But that doesn't mean it's been easy. That doesn't mean that I'm there yet and that I've done this complete 360 on how to interact with people, but it has changed what I do. It changes how I work with people. It's not a Band-Aid. It's not a quick fix. It's not a data-driven strategy, which is a little bit of a conflict in schools right now. But it has changed the way I think. It's changed the way I interact with people. And it's changed the relationships. It is a way of being now. And here's the best part. At one time, I would have said these were two totally different things. The old me and the new me were two different things. They're not. And we've had this wonderful marriage of how I am, because that's still valuable. The data and the charts and the graphs, that's still good, you know. But the action is what I love here. It's not just a lot of talking. That we're, at the end of the day, at the end of the 5 minutes or the 10 minutes or the half hour or whatever that session is, it's about action. What are we going to do to help, what are you going to do to help yourself move forward? And that's really important in this community too, that piece becomes part of what we do. So that's a nice connection to who I am. So thank you to all of you, and thanks, Rula.
From Israel Flores.
Hello, thanks for coming. When they asked me to, if I want to just talk in front of people, the truth is that I'm not really good talking in front of a lot of people, which is the truth. The other truth is that I didn't have time to prepare to this. So I'm going to improvise. There we go. Well, the truth is, when I started coaching, I do remember when I started coaching, the first 3 days of coaching, they teach us listening. And a lot of people in this room, they know this story. So I was learning how to listen, like truly listen to people. So I remember that I think after 3-4 days, came back home from work, and I listen truly to my wife probably for the first time ever, because you know, like because the truth is, like, she talks and I'm like, yeah, sure, I know, cool. So that day when I learned that skill and I truly listened to her, I think like my whole life changed. I can watch more TV. Well, not anymore, because now she takes the training, so we're like in the battle of that. So I think since that day, my whole life changed. So because of that is why I get so excited to take more training about coaching, because I see the change in my personal life. Now that I'm doing all these home visits with all the families that I work with, and until today, that I see all those families changing their perspectives of seeing life, even, you know, like seeing those kids growing, they think differently. And again, like we were talking about before, we used to go to their homes and try to solve the problems for them. Now, instead of do that, we just go, we put the options on the table and say, well, you pick what you think is best for you and your family. So because of that, I think it's really powerful. So they pick what they think is best for their family. But I think the best part of all this is that they feel secure about themselves. That they say, I came with the idea. I came with the solution. So that was me. And if they don't, you said it. I mean, we as coaches, we say, we were talking. You pick. So you know what you're doing. So they make them feel much better. They feel secure, and they feel that they can do everything. I'm talking about everything. I have families that I was in one of meetings in Brazelton, and I have this mom comes to this meeting, and I'm supposed to be there to translate the whole thing. And then I sit down, and then I ask her, if you have any questions, just please let me know. So that was her turn to talk, right? And then when they asked her a question, I mean, I was just like in shock because I was about to translate the whole thing and, you know, waiting for her to tell me, and she just started speaking English. And I'm like, wow. I mean, I was just amazed how in the whole meeting she was doing that. And of course, after that I was saying like, you know, good job, blah, blah, blah. But the truth is that I wanna ask her, like, what makes you change? And I asked her, and she said, well, you know, the way you talk to us and you being right next to me makes me feel secure. So I think that it's exactly what family coaches is. What is our job doing? They make them feel secure. Now they don't need my help to call a taxi. Before she was calling me. Now she called me to say like, hey, I call a taxi myself. Cool. So I think that's part of the role, and things. And I believe, because I really believe that the coaching takes me to this place with all these families, to create this relationship with them and be part of. I mean, what can I say? I feel, and I believe that they feel the same way that I'm part of their family. So I think that's what coaching is really important for me, and it's why I really want to pass it on to all these families, because, I mean, changed my life. I believe and I'm pretty sure they can change their lives.
Next we have Dana McNutt.
I'm Dana McNutt. I'm a family coach with the Early Childhood Connections program. I'm a family coach just like Israel, and I too use the coaching with families quite often. We've even started to use the coaching and the questions that we use on our intake forms with families. We went through a lot of the questions and we said, we don't really think this is coming from a coaching standpoint or from a coaching view. And so we sat down and we said, well, how can we make this sound more like coaching? So now we have questions that are more like visioning questions. So we have a question on our intake now that asks the parents to think about what they hope the first day of kindergarten will look like for their child. So we can start there, and then we can ask them, well, how do we make that happen? Well, what do we need to do to make that a reality, and use it as a starting point in our coaching? And actually, a lot of times parents, that's a question that they've never been asked, especially if they have an infant child, they have not yet thought about it. But we are coming in there and we're getting them to start thinking about those type of things, and using the visioning, and also using the powerful questions is also a very large part of what we do in of our work. But also with the coaching, a lot of it we use with ourselves or with our coworkers, because a lot of us have gone through this the community coaching together. So a lot of times we'll be talking with some of our coworkers who have not gone through the training, and they'll say, "Are you trying to coach me? Don't coach me." But it's only because we are so used to doing it. It was like that coaching in the background that Virginia talks about all the time. We were so used to doing it, and it's becoming more natural for us. And sometimes we do it and we don't even realize it that we're doing it. So it's just really awesome.
So next we're going to hear from Sue Clark.
Hey, Sue.
Without sounding like too much of a cliche, I'd like to explain to all of you how coaching has truly changed my life. And that change has been both personal and professional. Coaching has pretty much changed the way that I communicate with people. And that includes child care providers and the people that I work with and my coworkers and my community partners. But I think the biggest thing I want to share is how it has changed my relationship with my children. One day, early in our coaching training, and many of you were there that day, I was coached. I did that, raise my hand when they said who wants to be coached in front of the group. And needless to say, that was a little bit frustrating, and I was scared to death that all these people were going to hear my, deepest secret, I guess, is the way I'll put it. As a single mom, I had to postpone my college education, or the end of it, to raise my children. And because of that, I struggled through a large portion of my adult life. Well, one day my daughter came home and said, "Mom, I just got offered what's the word I want? Promotion at work, and I'm going to quit college." Well, all of those thoughts of Sue and struggle and going back to school and getting it all done came back that day, and I automatically turned on that Mama's going to give Allie advice mode. And so there were tears, and it was very difficult. Well, that day, while standing in front of all of my peers, I came to a very important realization. And that realization was that my daughter was 20 years old, and she had earned the right to make her own decisions in her life. And I, as a mom, had a job, and that job was to support her and empower her in trusting herself and making those decisions. And so that was very emotional for me. I went home that night after my training, and I sat Allie down, and I told her how proud I was of her and that I trusted her. And then I turned on my coaching skills, and I said, "What do you want?" I'm going to cry. "What do you want your life to look like? Because I trust your decisions, and whatever your decisions are, I'm going to stand right behind you the whole way." Well, she, of course, was a teenager, so she hugged me, and we cried, and she said, "Thank you, Mom." And then she galloped out my back door, but before she closed that back door, she turned around to me and said, "Well, this doesn't mean that I can't ask for your advice sometimes, right?" So that experience for me, I gotta find where I am in my notes. Sorry. That experience, being coached in front of a group of peers and then using that experience at home and seeing what it meant to my daughter, that gave me the tools to start using these coaching skills in my life and with my other children. That conversation truly transformed the way I talk to my children, and I learned to be curious instead of controlling, which it's difficult for a parent to get to that point. But a year later, my daughter came walking through that same back door and had received another promotion as the front end manager of a store. And as she left that day, I knew that I was doing her a favor, and that my coaching skills and me taking a step back from being that controlling mom who had all the answers because I had the best interests of my child at heart, I had allowed her to grow on her own, and that was the biggest gift that I could give my daughter. Now, I share that story today because I believe it illustrates the impact that coaching can have on families and on relationships, personal and professional. I use coaching with child care providers when discussing their goals for the children that they care for. I also use coaching in the background when working with families and community members. As a longtime trainer, stepping out of that mentor, I'll give you some advice role has really been a struggle for me. I've been programmed to listen to the problem, much like Kathy, sit and think what's the best answer to your problem and then give you the prescription. And so what I've learned through my coaching is that by these child care providers and these community members and my children, by discovering the answers to their questions on their own, those answers are much more meaningful. And they have a much bigger impact on their life. And like my daughter, coaching allows them to own their own celebrations and their own accomplishments. I'm a strong believer in the power of coaching for families and for community. And I acknowledge that it takes time and it takes practice. And believe me, I'm still working on it, and there are days that I want to say, wait, can we start this again? But coaching has taught me how to self-regulate my tendency to fix things, and how to support, how to acknowledge, and how to truly listen. And I think those three things are the key pieces of coaching for me. And so in my work and in my friendships, I use coaching a lot. And how I know that coaching is impactful is every once in a while I'll walk into the house and my oldest son will be sitting with my youngest son, and I will hear, and this is a surprise that it's the youngest son you'll hear, but he'll say, well, have you thought about that from a different perspective? So coaching is contagious. I didn't intentionally do it, and there are times I say things to my children and they'll say, Mom, stop coaching. But I think it's important for all of us to be grateful for each other, for our support of each other through all of this coaching. I think we're all very grateful to Virginia and Sharon and Belma and everyone that has come to help us through Leadership That Works. For Cindy for bringing this great idea to our community, and for WK Kellogg for making this possible for all of us. I think coaching is going to make a big difference in our community. We just need to keep working at it.
And last but not least, we have Damara Gardner.
So my name is Damara Gardner, and I wear a couple different hats. I'm a clinical therapist. I'm also an organizational development consultant, and I'm a nonprofit professional. Today I actually want to talk about the clinical work that I do. Once I first went through the coaching process, I was contemplating whether or not I wanted to continue being a licensed therapist. And it actually professed at one point that, I'm going to be done with therapy and I'm going to become a coach. And what I've realized through this process is that I don't have to choose, that I can be both, and that I can use the skills that I got through the great training that I had, lots of training, 600 hours of internship, with the skill sets that I've been able to get through this gift. And it really has been a gift. One of the things that I'm doing right now as a therapist is I'm working with children. I'm doing school-based therapy and home-based therapy. And anybody who's worked with kids, when you ask them a question, I don't know. Right? That's typically the response that we get from kids. And what I found is that through this process, it helps me to be present with children. And whereas I've been doing this for about 2.5 months now, I went back into the clinical field, very, very part-time. And I was sharing earlier that one of my young people, he's 17, was in placement for a while, has been in trouble with the law, lots and lots of problems. And we've been talking about his schoolwork, we've been talking about him finding a job, and what does productivity look like for him. And for the past couple months, I come in, I do a follow-up, hey, how's that job search been going? And we do other things related to coaching. And last week when I saw him,
before I had to ask him anything, he said, I just want you to know that I went out, I applied for 3 jobs, I'm doing really, really great in school. And in that moment, I realized that what I'm doing with this young person, with the clinical skills that I have, coupled with my coaching skills, can be powerful to help young people have a voice, to help them understand that they can be a part of decision making, that they do have an ability, regardless of what's being pushed down on them externally, right, to really be empowered and to make choices that are going to help them for the rest of their lives. So if we're talking about it, whether we're talking about it from a clinical perspective and working with kids, or we're talking about just youth development, period, powerful questions, acknowledgments, requests, challenges can be life-changing for our young people. And so, you know, we've talked about it from a lot of different perspectives, but coaching really has relevance in every single sector in the community. So, thank you.
So I just learned something I didn't know by listening to you all. You know, we've been talking about this coaching thing and how we have it be a sustainable process in the community and what does train the trainer look like and all that stuff. But what I really got listening to the 5 of you is that you know more about how to create coaching in your community than I will ever know. Now, I know I said that a little while ago because I believed it. But what I got by listening to you talk is I got it here. I got that you really are the experts about this, and that if I stay in the foreground, then I'll limit you. And I didn't know that, so it's, you know, it's a little bit like when you guys are up here talking about working with families and oh, they don't need me to solve their problem. Well, there's a huge relief for you as the clinical person to not be the problem solver, right? It makes your job a lot easier. I just got that. So me as the trainer and one of the people who holds the coaching in this community, I have less work to do. So we have some thank yous to do. The first person I want to thank is not here because he's, not surprisingly, out of town. That's Reggie LeGrand, who believed in this process and who, through his work at the W.K. Kellogg Foundation, funded this entire certification program. So please thank him personally next time you see it. You know, we'll give him a thank you and a gift and do that, but just know that he has really done a lot to make this happen and went to bat for this program. I want to also thank 3 people who are in this room. One is Cindy Rubel. Come up here, Cindy. A little gift for you, because what happened is I was on a phone call with Cindy Rubel and Chris Clark, and Chris always had a vision for coaching. You know, that was one of her things, and she was always looking for ways to bring coaching into the work she did. And she just had this aha one day, and she said, I bet you if I could get Virginia and Cindy talking, I could just get out of the way. And lo and behold, it was really true. And I just consider you the grandmother of coaching in this community, because without you, your vision, and your willingness to go to bat for this work, being able to see what was possible, nothing would have happened. So, Mary Barkley and Shelley Betts to come up. And know that Mary Garrett should be up here too. This is for you. Shelley has one. What I want to acknowledge you both for is, you know, when Cindy and I first had that conversation, what she was doing was figuring out how to create work for you all in how to make this family coach thing work. And what I have so appreciated through this whole process is you have been the beacons for coaching. You have really stepped in as an organization, organization-wide, really put money to your coaches getting coached, getting coach training, coaching each other, getting coaching for yourselves. You have really created a coaching organization. Besides that, you have done without 10 of your staff for the last 9 months, as not without them, but you know, it's taken a lot of their time to do this program, and that's a big bite out of your ability to do the work that you do. So I so appreciate what you've done and just love working with you both. And the last thank you before we go to cookies is to the coaches. Oh gosh, what can I say without crying? You know, somebody said to us this morning, this group was acknowledging Sharon and me, and they said, well, you know, you actually are part of Battle Creek. And I was laughing in behind because, you know, last week I subscribed to the Inquirer online. I thought, I've really gone over the edge now.
Do you get the shopper? Is really the
No, but now that I know about it. So, anyway, really what I want to say is thank you for your commitment. Thank you for keeping going. Thank you for doing all you had to do in the last month to make sure that you were standing here and being certified today. And just for the sort of light you hold for the community around this and the rest of the work that you do. So I just bow at your feet. I'm just in awe of you.
I want to second that. It takes a lot of commitment to work full-time, coach 50 hours, and really do a rigorous program. You all put your hearts into this, and it's going to be a huge blessing to the community. And so I just want to thank you and acknowledge you as well.
So another big hand for the coaches. We're trusting that there's cookies and lemonade and iced tea out there. And please feel free to stay. We'll be starting what we're doing again for another 20 or 30 minutes. So if our guests want to stay for a little while, please feel free to do that. And thank you for coming. Okay, so ICF in their vision statement says that part of their work is in service of humanity flourishing. And I really love the sentiment behind that statement. And it makes me think about how do we get to that humanity flourishing when whole groups of people can't bring their whole humanity to our training rooms and our coaching relationships. When we don't yet know how to train our students in a way that they know how to have their clients bring their whole humanity. So I think that one of the things we have to think about is even though we're not the only profession that is up against this, what do we do about this cultural awareness? We know that social workers and doctors and lawyers and teachers all are looking there. Blah, 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 blah. So, sorry, I have to go back. I'm not going to start that part again, but we're not the only profession that has this challenge. Doctors, lawyers, teachers, all are up against looking at culture and how it affects their, is that we have this thing that I call the myth of the whole person, and that we are not walking our talk. We have a talk to walk around the whole person. So it's really important that we start as coach training organizations taking this work on as organizations, incorporating this work into our curriculum, and helping our students know how to work cross-culturally. I think it's the only way that coaching is going to be able to step into what we're really here to do and the kind of reach that we can really have. And I think the handwriting is on the wall. I think we can get on board or we can be left behind. You've heard a lot of talk over this conference about cultural competencies that ICF is considering instituting. Well, what that means is to be accredited or reaccredited as a school, you're going to have to know what those cultural competencies are and how your curriculum is going to teach those. I believe that ACTO can take the lead in this work in the coaching field. I also think that it's important to notice that there's a whole wave of students coming toward us that we're not actually prepared to meet. So there's business reasons for taking on this work as well. So how does ACTO do this? Well, you know that we've created a task force on cultural awareness and cultural competency. And I think this task force this year is going to develop best practices. What do we already do in this area in our schools, and how can we learn from each other? I think ACTO will be being involved with the ICF targeted event in November around cultural competency. At Leadership That Works, we have calls for our faculty that we're starting around cultural competency and also around white privilege. And I'd like to open up those calls on white privilege to anybody in ACTO who would like to partake in those. Because, again, it's back to that place around self-awareness. If you're not aware of your own issues, you can't actually be open to others. So I want to close by having you go back to that center of coaching I've been talking about. And I want you to imagine how we might, as coaches in this coaching profession, start to shift what's at the heart of coaching. Start to look at how all of the ways that we've built ourselves need to shift in order to include and reach all the people of the world. Thank you.
All right, well, I got the mic set just right.
I'm going to steal this stuff.
So whenever you're ready.
Okay.
you're welcome to.
Sorry, Sharon.
Oh, that's okay.
I'm really going to stop.
I'm Sharon Brown, and I am on the faculty of Leadership That Works. And one area that I'm particularly interested in is coaching for community transformation. I've had a chance to see what's possible with coaching in my own life, in my own work, and I'm really excited about what's possible for the communities I grew up in, the low-income communities I grew up in, when we bring coaching into the community. I've had a chance to see what's possible already in some school settings where teachers really had a taste of coaching, a chance to experience coaching, to take coaching skills training, and think about what it means for the schools that they're leading in, both in terms of connecting with parents and connecting with other teachers, also with engaging students, engaging parents differently, and also creating a different school culture. One that's based on helping people step into their power, in addition to meeting the core requirements that teachers are often expected to meet. This is some work that Leadership That Works has been doing in New Jersey. I also have had a chance to see what's possible informally in my prison work, where inmates having informal conversations, coaching conversations with inmates over meals when we're doing workshops there, and how they're stepping into more power, thinking about their lives differently, thinking about what's possible for them when they start the next chapter of their life, and also taking responsibility while they're in prison to both empower themselves to motivate and inspire other inmates to think differently, to reduce levels of conflict and violence. So it gets me excited when I see, them taking the initiative to take these skills and use them and change both their lives and the lives of other people they're working with. So the coaching for community transformation work that we're doing has so much potential. Growing up in Newark, New Jersey, and East Orange, communities that are plagued with problems now, I see how these skills can really begin to shift what's going on in the community. So that community members can begin to, realize that they have power that they didn't realize that they have, and possibilities that they didn't realize that they have, and begin to change their family circumstances and, just think about their visions for their children, their visions for their families, and what's possible when they step into that. As part of the work that I've been doing with Leadership That Works at Virginia Kellogg in Battle Creek, Michigan, with our Civic and Community Coach Certification Training, we just graduated 25 community coaches, certified community coaches, who have been doing amazing work in the community already. They've volunteered over 1,300 hours of coaching in the community, have amazing ideas about what's possible and what can change in the community in Battle Creek. And watching what's happening here, knowing it's a model for what can happen in New Jersey, what can happen in New York, what can happen all over the country is really exciting. So I'm looking forward to continuing our work. We're at the forefront with bringing coaching to the community, with supporting community members in learning coaching skills so that they get to choose how they want to use these skills in their communities, so that their ideas are the ideas that take the community forward and really begin to transform the communities. So we're at the beginning of some very exciting possibilities, and look forward to being a part of it more and more. Hey,